Hi guys, welcome back to the channel. So today we're looking at a Cambridge IGCSE Economics paper 2 and we're looking at February-March 2025 paper variant 22. We're looking at section A in this video, so they'll give you source material and you have to answer every question that they give you. Okay, so I'm going to read the source information for you quickly and then we'll get into the questions. Between 1990 and 2022, Romania's population fell from 23 million to 19 million. The country's birth rate and death rate both fell over this period. Some workers from other countries, including Sri Lanka and Vietnam, came to live in Romania. However, more Romanian workers left the country to work and live mostly in other European countries. If the Romanian economy continues to grow at its relatively high rate, fewer of its people may immigrate and more immigrants may be attracted. Recent economic growth has been driven largely by increases in household spending. Romanians have become wealthier, more confident about their future, and have experienced low interest rates. In April 2022, the Romanian government placed a maximum price on electricity. Romanians spend a relatively high proportion of their income on electricity and on food. Table 1.1 shows selected countries' GDP per head and average spending on food as a percentage of total household spending. The poor are particularly affected by changes in electricity prices and food prices. Romania has a relatively high level of poverty. To reduce poverty, some economists have suggested that the government should attract more foreign multinational companies, MNCs, to Romania. More MNCs may affect poverty because of the possible effects on unemployment and prices. Another way to reduce poverty would be to encourage more women to work. The proportion of women in Romania who work or seek work has fallen in recent years. There's a range of influences on whether women enter the labor force. These include social attitudes, female education, and whether childcare facilities and part-time work are available. Okay. Question A. Calculate Romania's current account deficit on its balance of payments in US dollars. 1 mark, so I just need to do a calculation and provide an answer in US dollars and I'll get my 1 mark. So let's go have a look at the source material that they gave us. They told us current account deficit is, or as a percentage of GDP, is 9%. GDP is $300 billion. So I just need to find, or we just need to find 9% of $300 billion. So 0.09 times $300 billion is $27 billion, and that is the current account deficit on the balance of payments. Okay, question B. Identify 2 reasons why Romania's population fell between 1990 and 2022 for 2 marks. So I just need to identify the reasons from the source. And what I noticed, let me just move the video for you. The birth rate and the death rate both fell, right? So if the birth rate and the death rate fell such that the birth rate is less than the death rate, then population will fall. Okay, so just to give you, this is just a basic example by what I mean by that. If there are 3 births per 1,000 people, but there are 5 deaths per 1,000 people, then more people are dying than are being born in Romania, so the population will fall. Okay, so if the birth rate is less than the death rate, population falls. The other reason that I can identify is that Romanian workers are leaving the country. So that means immigration, the amount of workers exiting, right, is more than immigration, the amount of workers coming in. So population will fall. Okay. Question C. Explain why immigration into Romania may increase in the future. 2 marks. So I just need to find a point and explain that point. Then I'll get my 2 marks. What I see is that there's increase in household spending, right? So the question is, why might more workers continue to come into Romania? Well, if household spending continues to increase, right, that means there's an increase in consumer confidence, meaning there's an increase in demand, meaning firms need to increase production, meaning they'll need more labor, so there'll be more job opportunities and more immigration of workers who are looking for job opportunities will increase. So we will have more immigration in Romania. Okay. Question D. Explain 2 reasons. So 2 reasons here why household spending has increased in Romania. So I'm looking for 2 reasons and I need to explain each of those reasons for 4 marks. Okay. So why has household spending increased? We've got lower interest rates, right? Lower interest rates means more people are willing to take loans, right? So short-term disposable income is going to increase, and there will be increased household spending because of that increase in disposable income. It may also be that lower interest rates mean we are not going to be tempted to save our money because of the lower return on investment, so we would rather spend that money now. Okay, so that's why household spending would increase. The other reason that I can see is the government has instituted a maximum price on electricity, so electricity providers cannot charge a higher price than this, so we've capped the price, and that means if the price of a basic need is now less or limited, right, then more Romanians are going to have more disposable income. Okay, so if there's a lower cost of living from the maximum electricity prices, more Romanians will have more disposable income, meaning we will increase household spending. Okay. Question E. Draw a demand and supply diagram to show the effect of setting a maximum price on electricity. So the command word here is draw. So you don't actually need to do any explaining in your answer here. But what I've done is I've just put this explanation in for you. It's just what I said in the last question. A maximum price is the highest price you can charge. Okay, so it's illegal to sell a good or provide a service for a higher price. That means for this maximum price to be effective, it needs to be under the equilibrium price, right? You cannot charge a price higher. Okay, so if the equilibrium price is above the maximum price, then the maximum price is going to have effect, because whoever is selling their goods or services above the maximum price, right, has to change their prices because they're acting in an illegal manner. So that's why a maximum price needs to be below the equilibrium price. It's the maximum price that you can charge. Okay, so let's draw our graph. We've got our supply curve, S for sky, and our demand curve, D for down. On our y-axis we've got price, on our x-axis we've got quantity, and I've put in equilibrium price, PE, and equilibrium quantity. So remember, equilibrium quantity, one thing I want you guys to understand is that equilibrium quantity is where quantity supply and quantity demand are equal. So equilibrium quantity means quantity supply and quantity demand. Okay, it means both of them. Now we're going to put in our maximum price, which must be below the equilibrium price, because it's the maximum, the highest price we can charge. And then we'll see, we take that price over to supply to find the quantity supply, and then we at that price go over to our demand curve, find where they intersect, and we get quantity demanded. Okay, and that's how your diagram should look. Just to explain it to you, you'll see that quantity demanded has increased from QE to QD1, right? And you will see that, so quantity demanded has increased as the price decreases from equilibrium market price to the set maximum price. Okay, but you don't actually have to do any of this writing in your answer, because they've asked you just to only draw the diagram. Okay, analyze question F. Analyze the relationship between GDP per head and average spending on food as a percentage of total household spending for 5 marks. Okay, so here's the fact file they've given us. Table 1.1, GDP per head and average spending on food as a percentage of total household spending. Okay, so whenever they give you a table like this, you need to look through the data that they've given you and identify a trend in the data. Okay, so what I'm looking at now, I'm going to start at the lowest GDP. I see we've got Ethiopia, Egypt, and Cambodia, $960 per person. Egypt, Cambodia, 1,800. Egypt, 3,850. Okay, so these are all the lowest GDPs per head, right? And if I look at the average spending, they've got quite a high average spending, at least relative to the other information in the table, right? We've got 56, 33, 42. And then if I look closer, I can see that Ethiopia has the lowest GDP, but per person, per head, right? But the highest percentage of income spent on food. And then Cambodia has the second lowest GDP per head, and they've got 42%, so the second highest percentage of income spent on food, and then Egypt has the third lowest GDP but the third highest percentage spent on food. Percentage of their income is spent on food. And then I'll see that the next three countries who have higher GDPs all have, again, lower average spending on food as a percentage of their total household spending. So what I've identified here is that the lower the GDP per head, the higher the average spending on food as a percentage of total household spending. Okay, so this in conjunction with my red arrows for Ethiopia, Egypt, and Cambodia, I've put my analysis here in red writing just so that you can it's just easier for you to follow that. So Ethiopia, Cambodia, and Egypt, they have the lowest GDP per head, but they spend the highest percent of income on their food. And then if we look at Romania, Belgium, and USA, they all have higher GDP per capita and spend a lower percentage of income on their food when compared with Ethiopia, Cambodia, and Egypt. So that means my first statement, the lower the GDP per head equals a higher average spending on food as a percentage of total household spending. That trend is true and confirmed by the data that they've given us. Then you'll notice there is one anomaly or one exception to the rule, which is Norway. So Norway now, they spend the highest GDP per head, but then why do they have a higher percentage of their income spent on food compared to the USA, right? So that's something you can write in your answer as an exception. Norway is an exception to this trend, and it's most likely because they probably have a higher taxation, because they provide a lot of free public goods and services. So they've got a higher taxation, right? So that means lower disposable income, actually. And I said actually because food is probably more expensive, because Norway is in the north of Europe, very harsh natural environment, harsh conditions, not favorable for farming and food production. So food there is most likely to be quite expensive. Okay. All right. And those circles I put in just to show you how Norway sort of is an exception to that trend, because they've got a higher GDP per head. They're spending more of their income on food than the USA does. And they're spending a similar amount on food as Belgium does, even though they have considerably higher GDP per head than Belgium does. Okay. G. Discuss whether or not foreign multinational corporations reduce poverty in their host countries. 6 marks. Okay, so discuss questions. We know we need to say on one side, we need to analyze or explain why explain how multinational corporations could reduce poverty. And then on the other hand of the discussion, we need to say how their limitations in reducing poverty. How might they actually not be successful in reducing poverty in host nations? So host nations is the nation that they open up their firm in. Okay, so I said obviously increase employment, right? If MNCs are opening, there's going to be more job opportunities, so they'll increase employment. That'll increase average disposable income, which should reduce poverty. Okay. Second reason I said was improve technology. If MNCs are opening up and they bring in a production technology with them, which is increasing productivity, then there may be a spillover effect to local firms, right, who learn about these production techniques and also invest in similar technologies. Then that's going to improve economies of scale of local firms, which is going to decrease prices, which is going to increase real income, which means we'll decrease poverty, right? Because if prices go down, then we can buy more goods with the same money that we have, and that means an increase in real income. And if you can buy more goods with the same amount of money, then you should have a decrease in poverty. And the last reason I said was increased government revenue from tax on MNCs. Okay, so the government is going to tax the profits of the MNCs, right? So then they're going to increase revenue and then they'll have more money available for welfare benefits, unemployment benefits, and that is going to decrease poverty. Okay, and now to show the examiner that I'm transitioning to the other side of the argument here about how MNCs might be effective at reducing poverty, I'm going to show that with that transition by stating, on the other hand. I think that's just a nice effective way to show that you're transitioning your argument. So on the other hand, how might MNCs not be successful in reducing poverty? MNCs might become monopolies, and monopolies, we know they can increase prices, which will decrease real incomes, which in turn will increase poverty. Okay, I also said MNCs might become popular, which will decrease demand for goods made by local firms, which would increase unemployment if those firms have to shut down or scale down on the amount of labor that they use, right? And then that's going to increase poverty. And the final reason I said was MNCs might create more employment, which is a good thing, seemingly a good thing, because it will increase disposable income. But we know increased disposable income will increase demand, which will increase prices, which means we'll have more inflation, which means we decrease real income, because when prices go up because of inflation, we can buy less goods with the same amount of money. So then we're going to become relatively more impoverished. So that's going to increase poverty. Okay. Alright, question H. Again, a discuss question. Discuss whether or not a higher proportion of women is likely to enter Romania's labor force in the future. Okay, so do we think more women will enter the labor force in Romania in the future or not? Okay, so the first thing that came to mind for me was that we know that Romania's GDP is increasing, meaning there's more demand for labor, so there's more work opportunities. If there's more demand for labor, there should be an increase in equilibrium wage, right? So the increase in work opportunities, increase in demand for labor might encourage women over time to enter the labor force. And I said especially if there's an increase in part-time work, because the source has suggested that in Romania, women are encouraged by their culture to take care of children, right? So there's a lack of part-time work, which is stopping Romanian women from entering the labor force. So if there's an increase in part-time work, then then women will start to join the labor force in Romania. Okay. Second reason is migrant women. We know there's a lot of immigration of labor into Romania. So if a lot of these women who are migrating to Romania are also looking for work, and they are skilled and educated, right, then they're not going to be affected by Romanian culture, and therefore would be happy to enter the workforce in search of a job. Okay. The final point for why women might start to enter the labor force in Romania in the future is if there is an increase in multinational corporations in Romania. The multinational corporations are most likely to be internationally minded, they have a modern workplace culture, and will be happy to hire women to have diverse workforce. Okay. Now I'm going to transition again to the other side of the argument. So on the other hand, why women in Romania might not join the labor force in the future. Okay, so on the other hand, the current attitude toward female workers in Romania is a cultural issue, right? So when things are steeped in culture, that's a difficult mindset to change, and might only be changed in the very long run. So therefore, more women might not enter the workforce in the future. Maybe in the very long run, the distant future, yes, but in the immediate future, probably not, because of culture is a difficult thing to change. All right. If the government doesn't start schemes that promote women education, right? So the source says the government is, or economists suggest that the government should promote women education. They should promote part-time jobs. They should promote daycare centers, right? If the government doesn't promote these schemes, then it's unlikely that women are going to join the workforce in Romania in the future. Okay. And my last point is, a large portion of immigration may be women looking for fairer job opportunities in other countries. therefore women are leaving the Romanian workforce, right? So we know that a lot of workers in Romania there's a lot of emigration, right? Workers leaving Romania to work in other European countries, and this might be because of the culture in Romania, the attitude towards women in the workforce, right? So a large portion of these people, of the Romanians emigrating, leaving Romania, might be women. So a large portion of the workforce is actually of the women who are currently working might be leaving Romania, and those who might consider working or joining the workforce in Romania might also be leaving to work to find opportunities abroad. So therefore, the labor force, women will unlikely join the labor force in Romania in the future. All right. Okay, guys, thanks for watching. Good luck for the exams. Don't forget to do your past papers, and I'll see you in the next video. Thank you.